Welcome to 3. I'm Gill Gross, joined as always by Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We're recording this a couple of hours after Rafa held a press conference in Mallorca to basically update his status, which all we've had for a long time now, or at least since the Australian Open, were social media posts where Nadal was kind of week by week at times, month by month at other times, just updating everybody on his general status. But the main headlines here are that Rafa Nadal will not play Roland Garros. It's the first time that he's pulled out of the event before the event. He will also take a break from training completely, which puts his play in 2023 as a whole in a lot of doubt. It surely sounds like the plan is that he will start and be ready for the start of 2024 because he's going to stop playing right now and stop training completely. And then the third headline is that his intention, his expectation is that 2024 is going to be his last year. He did not say, absolutely, I'm done after 2024. He left the door open. He said that things could change, but in his head, 2024 will be his last year, pending something unexpected. Let's start well, we don't need to start or parse them all together. I mean, Amy, how are you feeling about this? Because I know that when he called a press conference, we were all a little bit nervous because there's usually some bad news coming when someone has to hold a press conference.
I thought about it, and Rafa's not a guy who calls a lot of press conferences. And I thought like about every scenario. He probably wouldn't call a press conference just to say that he is playing. But I basically boiled it down to two scenarios. Either he is playing and this will be his last tournament, or he's not playing. He's going to give his body a rest and give it one more try. And I was hoping that would be the case. So I'm in this odd feeling of happiness that he's not playing Roland Garros, because I think it's the smart thing to do, and it means that we can enjoy him for a little while longer, or at least we have that hope.
Well, we spoke about this before about Nadal and the homework ethic. And to him, am I ready means have I played matches, not am I ready because my body lets me know to, and his body and all these other factors. And yeah, I think there's a little bit of thinking, oh, is he going to announce the end of his career? But fortunately, he didn't do that. So we'll have a chance to see him, though. That'll be interesting, too, for him to be playing. Stefan Edberg did this in 1996. He'd announced at the beginning of the year it was going to be his last year. So every tournament he went to, there was this tribute story thing. And I'll be curious to see how Nadal wishes to manage that.
Okay, let's talk about that right away, because that's probably the biggest thing that came out of this. I think the expectation was that he was going to pull out of Roland Garros. It was at least my expectation. Didn't know that he would, I didn't know that he was going to potentially shut it down for the rest of the year. But the 2024 thing is a big deal. My read on it is that this has been very hard for him. He said as much. This whole the last 2 years or so, with all of the injuries he's had, actually some great successes on the court within the last 2 years, but the start of 2022 in particular. But I think it's been very hard for him, and he wants a finish line, like for his own mental health, his own sanity. He wants to know, okay, one last push. After this, the suffering is going to kind of be over. And Joel, I'm curious to know how you land on that, because you don't always like that word suffering, but that's my read on why Nadal, what incentivized Nadal to say, okay, 2024, I'm going to assume that that's my last.
I have many views of suffering, that are often insufferable, but I think sometimes, yeah, certainly the physical pain. I mean, look, this is the thing that most drives athletes to retirement, is the body just isn't helping you do what you need to do. And so then the question becomes, okay, if Nadal is going to manage his way through this 2024, you've got to think he most of all wants to play Roland Garros in 2024. He most of all wants to have himself in prime shape to give what he can to Roland Garros a year hence. And the rest is a big TBD. because that doesn't mean it's like, oh, play some more 2024 and then what? US Open, fall, and who even knows? So I think it's just, let's get the body as organized as we can, and anything else will be bonus, and that's all nice. And there's also this little thing of, oh, maybe the Laver Cup, you know what I mean? Or who even knows, or Davis Cup, but it's just, I don't know. I think and in the short term, let's talk about how also Roland Garros too. Yeah.
I have a little bit of a different take, Gill, than you. Like the end of the tunnel, the suffering will finally be over. I think it's the opposite. He really wants to compete. You know, he still very much wants to compete, but he's going through this process of having to separate his desire from his body. And the body isn't cooperating right now. And that's frustrating. But I personally, if I really like listen to him and parse out his words and all that, I don't think that this season's US hardcourt is out of the question. If, 2 months down the line, if he's skipping Roland Garros and purportedly going to skip Wimbledon, that he doesn't say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling good. I'm not going to take the rest of this year off. And if I'm feeling good, I'm going to play, because that's what he likes to do.
I think certainly he wants to compete, but I think part of his experience as a pro is this stuff, the recovering from injuries, the rehabbing, the dealing with the pain on the court. I think that's become a part of his reality, and I think that's the part that he wants to see a finish line for, right? Of course, if he were able to play pain-free, he would just play forever. I think Joel makes a sobering point about just that this is how it usually is, that the end is not usually the athlete's choice, it's the athlete's body's choice, right? Okay, but let's go to the Roland Garros skippage, Joel. What are your thoughts on the implications that 14-time champion, someone who's played Roland Garros every year since 2005, for the first time has to miss it, somewhat remarkably, given all of the other slams that he's had to miss throughout his career. But RG has always been the haven of good health for him.
Well, in tennis, every player has kind of their staple tournament that really most matters to them. Obviously, Rafa, I think, we can talk about the implications of the draw, but most of all, the implications are I'm bummed. I love watching this guy play at Roland Garros. And 112-3? Seeing him play there, I mean, I've seen him play there many times, and I think that itself, just that alone, is upsetting. Not to be able to see Nadal. They're not even significant history, championship, just to see him play a point, to see him practice, to watch him parade on that court, to watch him bring his stuff, to watch him be, the matador in his bull ring. All of those things are just so powerful. And we've had such a joy seeing him these many years. I have friends who are very much Nadal lovers. And for 10 years, I've had several of them say, God, I'm worried, Rafa, this. I said, you know what? You have had triple the goodies that any tennis lover of any player should feel the right to. You've had like a triple portion. I lived and died with Jimmy Connors for 20 years, and I got, 8 slams and 5 US Open title runs, and that was a pretty darn good portion. Nadal have 14. So bummed about not seeing him, but also, okay, wow, but still, I'm upset too, because I so enjoy watching him play on that surface.
I loved Ferrer, and all I got was Paris-Bercy. I didn't even get the other one. The better Paris.
One Roland Garros final.
I just am not that sad, to be honest. I'm happy that he's not retiring. And it, being like a person who likes numbers and stats and things like that, he's had an incredible run of good luck, especially knowing how the feet and the number of injuries that he's had over the years. He's had a run of good luck to be healthy at this time of year for so many years, or at least patch himself up enough to be able to play for so many years, that I think the odds were bound to catch up to him, if not age. And so I'm not, I mean, of course, I'm sad that he's not going to be in the field, but I think it really does make for a wide open Roland Garros, especially considering what's happening with Djokovic right now. Alcaraz just lost in Rome. Fascinating. So I'm not really, I can't say that I'm that sad. I'm happy that Rafa is still going to try to play tennis.
Yeah, I kind of feel that, Amy. I'm with you because again, I think the nervousness of the severity of the situation when he called the press conference was real. And also I didn't want to see him play Roland Garros and be a shell of himself. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that would be something that anybody was going to get much out of. So, and frankly, I didn't take his chances all that serious. If he was in the draw, there were a lot of people giving him some well-deserved respect, just being like, look, if he says he's going to play, then he's the favorite. Like, that's it. But my logical brain couldn't turn off. And I'm like, well, he's lost 7 out of his last 9 matches. It's been pretty much 10 months since he's played a good level of tennis. So I wasn't really in that place. So I'm glad that he's not only not playing Roland Garros, I'm glad that he's decided that he's going to sit on the couch for a couple of months because he's been hitting tennis balls for how many weeks now? How many weeks have we been seeing training videos of him hitting tennis balls? Clearly the injury not getting better.
That I just have to interject here. I'm sitting on a couch. That's funny because from his own book, when he was healing from, I think it was a knee injury, he would take a chair on the court and he would still swing sitting in the chair.
That
So
was what
he
Thomas
might be
Muster,
sitting on the couch, but he's still going to be swinging a racket, perhaps.
that was the old Thomas Muster thing when Thomas Muster hurt his knee and he was in. There's a famous footage of him like taking swings. Yeah, I get all the rational things. Of course, we don't want someone playing when they're hurt and hurting themselves more. I just think, do you guys ever see the movie A Christmas Story?
Yeah.
The movie in A Christmas Story, there's a scene where the holiday turkey gets toppled by this dog and it gets completely devoured. And the narrator goes, "It was all gone. Our turkey sandwiches, our turkey meal, our turkey gravy." And that's what I think with Nadal. Our Rafa on clay, our running forehands, our leaping overheads, our drop shot retrievals, our counter drops, our drop drops, our topspin, gone. I mean, so that's where I'm kind of sad about seeing Rafa not there. Well, of course, I'm glad that he's doing the smart thing and what his chances were, but still. And so that'll make, of course, the chance to see him next year extreme, if he's there, extremely powerful.
This is his 4th major that he's missing as defending champion. Just want to throw this stat out here. 2009 U.S. Open, 2014 U.S. Open, and 2020 U.S. Open. So whenever he wins the U.S. Open, he tends to not be able to play the next one. But here will be the 4th. Okay. It's going to be a continuing thread, I'm sure. I think we've covered most of the bases here on Rafa. It's also an interesting time for Novak Djokovic. We talked about this potential Rune quarterfinal when we previewed Monte Carlo, Amy, and we agreed. We were like, a good epic against Rune, and Rome will be a success. It was a 3-setter, 1 hour rain delay in the middle. Rune won the first and the third sets 6-2. Was this the match we had in mind? Was this good enough to feel good about where Novak's at right now?
Well, I did say 3 sets, didn't I? I didn't say the part about the rain delay. I missed that. Yeah, this is in the quarterfinals. This is exactly what I wanted. And I think he's going to be, I don't know, something's a little off. I'm not sure if there's an injury. The announcers prior to his match against Norrie on the world feed revealed that they had been told officially that Novak was late getting out to that match, just a few minutes, because he had injured his shoulder during warm-up. They didn't say which shoulder. But it didn't seem to, once he got into the match, it didn't seem to affect him that much against Norrie. And of course, the thing with the overhead overshadowed all of this. So I did a news search this morning. Nobody's even talking about the shoulder injury. And then in his most recent match, he did take 2 tablets during a timeout. So he's not 100% right now. But what I really wanted was that match, that tension, and he got a couple of tense matches. So I think he's going to be okay. I think he'll be prepared going into Roland Garros.
Joel, what'd you make of the match and the result itself?
Well,
What
Novak
are you
spoke
seeing on the
about the
court?
thick conditions. He had a lot of praise for Rune, who that guy's got come with a little bit of that X factor, don't you think? I mean, that ability to kind of find something special, greater even than the sum of his parts. His parts are pretty good too, but there's just this way he knows how to come up with things. And we recognize that when players. I'm looking forward down the road. We've talked about Alcaraz and Sinner, who've already played some good matches. How about Alcaraz and Rune? That's going to be interesting too. But Novak spoke about the thick conditions, and when a player speaks about those, it's even more. I mean, he spoke about it delicately, not over, and he very laudatory to his opponent. So I think Novak is wondering, yeah, got some tennis in, but wouldn't mind it a few more rounds and maybe walking away with that trophy. But here he is. So he knows that Novak, he's going to be 36 years old on Monday. And I guess he's going to see. And now Rafa's out. So that adds another little plot point.
Yeah, he had a lot of trouble hitting through, didn't he? I mean, Rune, I really loved his defense in this match. I thought it was so diverse. There was slice defense. There was high, heavy topspin defense. You never really knew, especially on the forehand, if he was going to defend cross court or down the line. So I think he really disrupted Djokovic's ability to attack. And with the phenomenal court coverage and the heavy conditions, I just didn't think Novak's forehand had enough, and it missed too much. And
Yes.
I think that was the big thing with this match. But Rune, who early in the year I found to be very erratic, very impatient, and sometimes irresponsible with his shot selection, played this really patient, clean match, made only 15 unforced errors, according to Tennis TV. Infosys had 4. So a lot less,
Amy's
no
point.
matter what.
Gill, you're finally coming to the light.
Yeah, she helped bring me to the light.
Go that far.
Yeah, Amy's bringing the unforced. Yeah, there you go. Unforced errors. 4 and 15. Okay. His mother had 0.
The big question for me is, did Djokovic look underpowered because of the conditions and somewhat the opponent, or did his forehand look underpowered because it's underpowered right now?
Tell me what you think of this. This is highly unusual. Rune in the first set made an extraordinarily low number of first serves. I'm trying to remember what it was. It might have been something along the lines of only 30% or something like. So most of the points played were second serve points on Rune's serve. And yet he handled the set very, very well. I thought an eye popper for me was forehand errors by Djokovic and not missing by a little. Missing by 2.5 feet wide or a foot long. But what do you guys think of that?
Well, I'll get back. Okay, I'll talk about this second serve. Okay, so Rune is playing on a thick day on a clay court, and he's hitting a second serve to Novak. What's Novak going to really hurt him with the return anyway? I mean, Novak's primary asset as returner is depth, and accuracy through the thick part of the court. It's not that he hits it into the corners. He's not Andre Agassi. He's not hitting winners. So Rune said, okay, have at me. I mean, in a way, Rune could maybe take from that, hey, maybe I should second serves first more often, because how are you going to hurt me anyway? Gill, I think you have a thought on that as our player most influenced by the Spanish clay system.
I just think Rune dominated in the baseline exchanges, and that's what second serve tennis is. First serve tennis is, serve +1, violence, an unbelievable, at the highest level, an unbelievable amount of force is generated on those first couple shots generally, and Rune is no exception. Second serve tennis is the equivalent of when, or closer at least to when you play your friend and you say, let's play baseline points to 11, and you start the ball in with the feed and then you play the point. That's more like second serve tennis. So to me, it just underscored and highlighted. I actually think Djokovic outserved Rune in this match. It's probably the only thing that he did better than Holger, but the baseline matchup was not close. I mean, Rune had a really good handle on it.
Yeah, and what does serving mean? What is dominant serving on clay court tennis versus someone who can get as many balls in play as a Rune? What does that mean? We're not talking about Pete Sampras at Wimbledon commanding play, because second serve on grass can be a little bit more forthright than second serve on clay. That's why the tactical mindset. I mean, for example, I think of a French Open final match Wielander played in '88 where he missed like 3 first serves because you think, go ahead, hit me, I dare you. I mean, it's a good. It's like I'm thinking if I ever play a match on clay again, I'll think, I'm just going to hit a lot of second serves first, dare them anyway.
Yep. At the end of the day, I agree with Amy that something is not right. I'm actually probably a little bit more pessimistic just because based on just his mood, I don't think he's feeling good, Novak. And by the way, in the press conference, he did a great job, I think intentionally, of making it seem like everything is totally fine. But on the court, to me, it didn't look like that. I thought he looked a little bit miserable from the start. And I don't think it was because of Rune. I can't say that, like, give Rune all the credit for making him miserable. No, I think from the moment he stepped on the court, he was not really happy. And usually when that's the case, it's because his body isn't right. And he takes full accountability for that generally. I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself to make his body right. And he took the painkillers early on in the match at the change of ends. I think there's some issues right now, and I think it's bringing down his mood. That's what I saw kind of on the court.
Yeah, I agree.
Mood is a good mood. Sorry, Jill. Mood is a good word. Not, like a little bit of a cranky mood. Got into it with the chair umpire, complaining about the drawn out,
This was funny.
English to Italian, and told him, like, this is how we do it, English to Italian. And he's like, why do you have to make it so dramatic? For God's sake. That's what he said, quoting. So yeah. And that's like, I was thinking about that too. Like when things are going well for Novak, he's in more of a jovial mood. And we just didn't see that in Rome.
So he gets his experience, has some matches. And I think he just, okay, let's get to Paris. And I think the weather forecast is going to be really important to Paris, because I think the more sunshine, more warmth, ball moving through the air, not getting in these kind of, stuff. I mean, it's not that, remember, getting back to the forehand, as great as he's made his forehand, it's not a top spinning margin forehand. It's more flat. So he needs a little help from the weather also. And these guys are younger, they're younger contenders and they're fast, and they've spent their life studying how well Novak does things.
Yeah, but in 2021, when he won the whole thing, it was the heavy kind of topspin forehand that I think he was able to kind of build up throughout the clay court season, and it became a real beast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's usually the X factor for him on clay, because look, I've said this for a lot of years. His cardio is post prime. There are a lot of things that Novak has gotten better throughout his career, and even like at 35 years old, doing it better than ever, like serving. But the cardio is post prime. So he can no longer afford to play a match where he can't create easy offense against a guy like Rune and still win the match, in my view. That's fair?
That is fair.
Yeah. I mean, what struck me in the Rune match was just how flexible and live and young Rune looked, and that's usually what we think about Novak. And Novak, I think maybe with his movement was just a tiny bit more robotic. And it really is, the passage of time and younger players coming up who have a legitimate game and a legitimate shot to win Grand Slams. And Rune is definitely one of those players.
Well, and they've studied the elasticity of Novak. I mean, they've seen, I think there are many things that can be written and examined about the Novak training methods that have gotten him so flexible and nimble. And now, okay, yeah, I'm nimble next generation and I'm younger, because you could see the Novak influence on Rune's game. You can see that in the movement and the balance and the recovery. And this is kind of taking the contemporary greatness of Novak into a next generation, just like you see the various ways that Federer and even Nadal have brought their way into Alcaraz's game, the inspiration and all this stuff. So this is the game, and it's that's why it'll be real. Roland Garros is going to be really fascinating. Excited to see the draw.
Are there more questions about, and we'll make this topic 3, are there more questions about who's going to win Roland Garros than there ever have been, just given the state of both Nadal and Djokovic coming into 2023?
Probably in your life, Gill, since I think the last time Nadal didn't play Roland Garros. How old were you the last time Nadal, if I may? Right? That was 2004?
Yeah, it's 5.
Yeah, you were 5. Yeah, I think it's the widest open Roland Garros in at least since then. Even that 2005, Nadal was in the ascent. There was Roger, right? But wow, it's very exciting.
What's interesting to me is if Alcaraz had not lost in Rome, and we had a fun little discussion, on text, the 3 of us did about, how significant was this loss. But if he had not lost, and if Alcaraz had just ramrodded his way through Rome, he would be such a favorite heading into Roland Garros. But that didn't happen. And we don't know who's going to win Rome. And it is wide open. And, I love Rafa with all my heart. But it is kind of interesting to have this tournament without him and see what happens.
Right. And see who starts their 14-year reign. But of winning Roland Garros. I think also so here's one. I think Novak's loss was more significant, was harder for him. And Alcaraz, I'm less concerned about Alcaraz losing than I'm concerned about Novak losing in Rome. In other words, I don't think Alcaraz's loss was less harmful to Alcaraz's chances in Roland Garros than Novak's leaves me a little bit more, like we've been talking.
Well, Joel, is that because Alcaraz had gone the entire season without losing before a semifinal?
Yeah, because Alcaraz has generated a great many results. And granted, Novak won the major, he won the Australian, so that's pretty good too. But Novak, we're just, I think we all, I know from our talks, we were thinking maybe a little bit more output through this clay season.
Absolutely.
3 or 4 matches and maybe a title.
Mm-hmm. And I think Amy makes a great point. If Alcaraz won Rome, it would have been a very Nadal-esque Roland Garros lead up, and there would have been few questions. The only thing, though, that also contributes to Alcaraz not being just kind of that shoe-in guy is, he still has only won 1 major, right? I mean, so he's still in that stage where it's like, okay, we've seen it once. And until we've seen it, it got to a point with Nadal, obviously, okay, we're coming into RG, whatever, he's done this 9 times, that until it gets to that point, it'll never feel as certain. So I think those are the 2 factors kind of coming in.
I think Carlitos' reputation is preceding him a little bit prematurely. You're right. You make a great point. He's only won 1 Grand Slam. When you see him play and when you see him dominate somebody, we're in a rush to replace our 3. And we think, well, here's the guy. This is it. He's got that amazing quality, that exciting quality about him. When he dominates, he runs away with it. He's an all-court player. He can do it all. and we're anointing him in our head to Rafa-like or Novak-like or Roger-like status when he really doesn't have the results yet. So perhaps it is unsurprising that he suffered a loss to a far lower ranked player. But now the seas have parted, and he will be the number 1 seed at Roland Garros. Let's see what he can do.
Joel, what do you think of that? I mean, I've always been on like the Alcaraz is 100% not overhyped camp. I've been accused of I've never hyped him. That's never been my intention, but I've analyzed him and explained what I'm seeing with him. I mean, I think everyone, and Amy, I mean, you agree with this. Everyone should be very, very excited about him and what he can bring to the sport, right?
I think the whole hype concept is a bunch of hype. I don't care for that. I think when people say you guys hype someone, no one. I mean, I'm a jury. Someone said, yeah, you're involved in writing. Your job is to promote the sport. My job isn't to promote the sport. My job is to engage with the sport. And I don't work for a clothing company. I don't work for a racket company. So I think it's not about hype. It's about perception and thinking. That's why everybody knows I don't like making predictions, like forecasting. And so I think it's a question of, the qualities one sees and the performance that's going pretty well. Yeah, he won't match those guys until he's won 19 more. So whatever. But I think it's a question of like how rapidly you generate quality results. And that's one of the things that's been impressive about Alcaraz, how he's kind of like, wow, he's winning a Masters 1000. Wow, he's winning a Slam. Wow, he's winning more and he's on clay. And that's like, those are indicators of high level performance, just like there were with Rafa in 05 when he was winning some of the clay season and he's Monte Carlo and working his way and coming into Paris that year with a whole head of steam of results. The steam is results. It's not. So I think this whole way of how, of expectation and performance, that's why I'm so glad I write about a sport, not about politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and the season that he's having, it could be one of the great seasons. I mean, right now the record is unbelievable. So we don't need to kind of wait until he's won his 10th major before we say anything good about the guy. Like some people.
Well, look, if I may, Roger Federer had a certain expectations. What people saw about him initially in '98 when he was a junior. 01, he beat Sampras at Wimbledon. Finally, 2 years later, 03, he wins. But it was clear the way he was playing, the shots he was bringing, and then in 04 when he kind of won 3 majors that year, kind of like crystallized. It's like, wow, this is not a one-term president. This is not a guy who's just going to come and go. This is someone who's got a sustainable level of excellence. And you're seeing in the shots and the dominance and all those factors were kind of lining up. So by the end of 04, wow, Federer appears to be on a path to a certain kind of A+ level greatness. It was different than
you had to trust your eyes, right?
Well, and the results and the result, both. It was both. It was both. The quality of the tennis, the qualitative and the quantitative were aligning. It wasn't like he just had a sparkling run to a single, like a Marat Safin. Marat Safin had a sparkling run to the 2000 US Open title, but other things weren't always lining up to think, wow, and so it will continue. Whereas Roger, by the end of 04, by which point he'd won 4 majors, it was like, this is looking pretty special.
Right. So we're in the process of figuring that out right now about Alcaraz, and we think we're on to something. I mean, right. and the results will tell us exactly where he stands in the halls of greatness. But yeah, as a journalist, it's interesting that you say that, because I write about Alcaraz a lot because he's exciting to me. And I think that fans want to read about that, but I get accused of, oh, you just want clicks. You're writing about Alcaraz. You just want clicks. Well, yeah, I do. I do want clicks.
I want clicks.
I want people to read what I'm writing about. And therefore I write about what is exciting, and Alcaraz is exciting.
That's always a funny accusation. No, look, and I understand. I mean, look, clickbait, titles that don't represent what it is, like that stuff's bad. But when it's just like, you want clicks, it's like, yeah, I'd like to be paid.
But he's performing. You're not writing about he's performing. You're not. I mean, it's different. Let's say, okay, as a contrast, even though of course he's a great player and he got this Kyrgios. Kyrgios generates interest, engagement, but there's been the Kyrgios conundrum is performance, skill, because we see things in Kyrgios. I mean, I love watching that guy play tennis. I think he's fantastic. I can't turn away when he's playing a match, but I wish I could see him more. I mean, I wish I could see him more. And that's it. I mean, that's what's so fun about writing about sports. We're not talking about we rarely talk about potentials. We talk about things that are vividly occurring.
All right, wide-ranging conversation. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. Appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.